Welcome to another episode of the Crypto Spendthrift Podcast. Today, we're going right in. So, first up, the Coin Watch segment. And Bitcoin, as always, is under our faithful guise. And if you've been looking at the market lately, you'll notice that the flippening has become a floppening, as some has coined it, because Bitcoin's dominance is slowly regaining in the crypto market. Of course, Bitcoin's dominance won't be forever. It will definitely eventually lose that dominance just because the quantity and quality of coins will go up, and Bitcoin won't be the primary thing eventually. But how long that'll take, who knows? But for now, Ethereum's getting the boot, and it's slowly dying. And on to the next one. We already basically talked about Ethereum, so we're going to skip over that to Litecoin. Unlike Ethereum, Litecoin's actually kind of managing itself to stay true and stay relatively stable in comparison to all these other coins that are just dying off. Which coins dying off is DGB is still on that slow descent, and Scicoin's not looking too healthy either. Ubix kind of and Waves and Arc, Arc isn't doing so hot if you look at it in a weekly basis, and Waves is could be better, ICN's not really doing much either. But I think every coin but DGB, if you look at it from 1 or 2 months, it's still on the up for most of them. DGB was on the peak and on the crash, and that train's definitely dead for a while. But who knows? DGB is a pretty old coin in comparison, to most of these under Litecoin on the list. But we'll have to see just what pans out for it. I think it might have a few price gains in the future, especially after its price is in the pits. So that's it for Coin Watch. On to the next segment of the news. So I'm sure you've been hearing how MtGox owner Mark Karples is pleading not guilty to the charges of embezzlement and data manipulation for all the charges of losing 650,000 Bitcoins. An insane amount of number. And pleading not guilty. I don't know how many of you are trading crypto while MtGox was a thing, but I'll tell you something. That little story was interesting, especially the conspiracies behind MtGox. While it was going insolvent, I remember reading things how people were trying to claim that MtGox was kind of supporting Silk Road, and the reason why MtGox really retained its popularity and most of its transaction was because Silk Road and a secret partnership it had. But that's all kind of conspiracy. None of that's proven. The only thing that's proven is how Karples was messing with the customers' funds and basically making his house of cards look a lot more stable than it was. So, speaking of an insolvency, once again, Poloniex is taking their time on repairing a wallet. This time it's Zcash. It's been over 5 days since the Zcash owners has been able to access their wallet. And this, like I said, this isn't the first time. This isn't the first time in the past few months that Poloniex has been taking their super long time on getting people's wallets functional again. And is this because, the influx of new people, or is Poloniex is just falling apart slowly internally, which is the reason why it takes them so long to respond to repairs? Especially when you compare them to somewhere like Bittrex, and how when their wallets go down, usually it's a day or two at most until it's fixed most of the time. So what's going on with Poloniex? Who knows? But if I had anything in Poloniex, I'd be pretty wary and try to pull out into other exchanges, just because they're getting kind of sketchy with their wallets. And you never know, your wallet of altcoin could be next that gets held hostage for an unknown amount of time. So I just wouldn't take that chance, guys. And the final story here today is the fact that the IRS is kind of ditching their plan to fully get all the data from Coinbase. They're giving the exception to casual Bitcoin buyers. And by casual Bitcoin buyers, it's anyone with less than $20,000 worth. Now, this doesn't mean that you don't have to file taxes and not report it. This just means they won't try to audit you if you don't own more than 20K. So you don't have to worry about an audit, but still do your taxes. Because if you get audited for another reason, you could get screwed over by this. So this is just showing that the IRS doesn't want to clog their, I'm sure, already extensive list of to-be audits with a bunch of people who bought a bit of Bitcoin here and there. So that's why they're only going with people over 20,000, since if you see statistics on the distribution of Bitcoin, people who own more than $20,000 worth is a fair minority in comparison to people who own less than 1,000. And that is it for the news today. Pretty short episode again. We're going to make them longer. But you know what always makes them longer? Our third segment. Either Mentality Monday or, in this case, True Talk Thursday. And today we're going to talk about dealing with the doubters. Because we all know with crypto, you deal with a lot of doubters. Rather it be people who don't understand the technology, or it's just people who are fudding your super pick for the next big thing or thing that's going to be on the rise. So how do you deal with these fudders or doubters or just misunderstood Luddites? I think there's I think it depends on who you're dealing with. There's not really a catch-all kind of attitude you can deal with people unless you just want to eliminate people from your life. Which, I don't recommend that, because I'm going to make Monday's episode about isolation. And to make sure you don't mentally isolate yourself. But that's for Monday. Or maybe it's compounding interest. We'll see what Monday is in store. But back on this topic for today. So, today, Thursday, dealing with doubters. It depends on what kind of doubter you got. I believe in a previous episode I talked about dealing with FUD and how you need to kind of do your own research and not let it get to you. Well, responding to FUD is, I think, should be a bit similar. But the people who should respond to FUD is, if you're kind of a relatively distinguished poster, I guess, on certain websites, or if you're an actual owner of a coin, I don't think you should go out your way and defend too many coins yourself. even if you have an investment, like a sizable investment in the coin, defending it from every person, every negativity yourself, isn't usually worth the effort. Like I said before, you should definitely just kind of think about what they're saying, and if they're just straight up trolling, ignore them. But if they're giving kind of sound criticism, to take it in. Now, if you're dealing with doubters on the I don't understand this field, which is probably a lot of people, especially among the family sort, you shouldn't have told them from the beginning. As simple as that. And that might be a weird or kind of bad thinking, some might say, but I believe you probably shouldn't have told them from the start. Why? Because crypto is not just technology; it's also money, and you could tell them that you're doing this, and when you might give them like an exact sum, and for now they might not understand it at all, but in the future they might see some news article and they might begin pestering you because they knew you did something with it. They might think you have more money than you actually have, or you have the exact amount of money they expect you to have from doing it. So you shouldn't really worry about those kind of doubters who don't understand. You should really kind of stay away from educating them, as bad as that sounds, at least on your own finances. You can nudge them in with the technology, but definitely stay away from money and numbers, because that'll just lead to bad things. So, I think I'm going to end this episode super early. I think I said that before and I ended up almost dragging it out. This one's actually really short compared to the other ones I've done. And I'm going to kind of reserve the end of the episodes for announcements. And one such announcement is, like I said before, I've been busy with many other things. But, I'm thinking of revamping just a bit to add a bit more meat into the podcast to avoid these days like today where I'm under 15 minutes and I'm using this as a almost excuse to reach that. So I think I'm gonna start having like a minimum thing, like a minimum length to like get more into the news, or well, I don't want to add more news because quantity is not always better than quality, especially since there's a lot of irrelevant news that I could just drone on about, but that's kind of like whatever. So yeah, I think for Monday probably like get more into it rather than just a little bit of comment, like a small comment like I've been doing. And maybe in the past I just talked more about this stuff, I don't know. But that's one announcement. Stay tuned for another announcement, and I'm sure I'll have next Monday, because I forgot it. So, see ya Monday, guys. It's been another episode of the Crypto Spendthrift Podcast.